What should I know so far? Yesterday you did problem 3.1. The focus question was, how can the number line help you think about fractions that are greater than 1 and less than 0? So when we looked at the number line, and you looked at the number line and used a couple different number lines in your problem, we said sort of the home base would be 0. And whole numbers greater than 1 could be listed. And then we could also find fractions. I'm sorry, I have a very bad stylus here. Fractions within those whole numbers to make mixed numbers or improper fractions. And then what about numbers less than 0? Well, numbers less than 0 would be the numbers to the left of 0, numbers that are less than 1. So we had -1, 2, and 3 as the whole numbers, and then in between we had fractions and fractional parts of a whole. So how can a number line help you? Well, it helps you because it's visual. You can see where they live. All right, so what else should you know so far? I'm going to move this out of the way. You should be able to identify an improper fraction. It's a fraction in which the absolute value of the numerator is greater than the absolute value of the denominator. And that simply means the numerator is greater than the denominator. That's improper. When you see the numerator, the top number, it's greater than the bottom number, the denominator, it's called an improper fraction. And you should have practiced on Khan Academy on how to turn an improper fraction into a mixed number. So one of the ways I teach this is I say, okay, how many times does 2 go into 7? It's going to go in there a whole number of times, and the denominator will always stay what it already is. So what I like to say is 2 times some number to get us as close to 7 as possible. So I know 2 times 3 is 6. So 2 times 3 is 6. What do we have to add to 6 to get to this 7? 2 times 3 is 6, and we have to add 1 to get to 7. So 3.5 is a mixed number. We have a whole number and a fraction attached, and it's equivalent to 7/2. And we can find where these live on the number line that we previously spoke of. What else should I know? I should know that a mixed number is a number that's written as both a whole number and a fraction. For instance, 2.5. 2 1/2 is a mixed number. One way I like to explain how to solve these is I draw a half of a circle with an arrow that tells me what operations or what direction to go, and I like to say 2 times 2 plus the numerator. So I would say 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 would give me 5, and we keep the numerator the same. 5/2 is an improper fraction. So you should be pretty good at going in between mixed to improper, improper to mixed, mixed, improper, improper to mixed, and you practice those on Khan. What else should you know? You should know about opposites. Opposites are two number whose sum is 0. For example, -3 and 3 are opposites. On a number line, opposites are the same distance from 0, but in different directions from 0. So if we just show that quickly, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. What is the opposite of 5? Well, it's -5. They're the same distance from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So their absolute values are the same, it's just they'd have different signs. So you did some work with opposites, and the last thing was absolute value. You should be familiar with absolute value. The absolute value of a number is the distance from 0 on a number line. Numbers that are the same distance from 0 have the same absolute value. So we learned that in class we say the absolute value of -5 or the absolute value of 5, these bars are really a math question to say what's the absolute value. So what's the absolute value of negative 5? What's the absolute value of 5? Well, once again, we can show that on a number line. Here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and negative 5. I'm going to circle this one with green and this one with blue. So what's the absolute value? That means how far from 0 is negative 5? Well, we can count. We can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. And the absolute value of 5, count back to 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The absolute value of 5 is also 5. Absolute values will always be positive. It's just the distance from 0. All right, so last but not least, how do you get practice at these? You should have gone through intro to negative numbers, interpreting negative numbers on a number line, negative decimals on a number line, and rational numbers on a number line. If you haven't done these, do them. Yesterday in class, we practiced rewriting mixed numbers and improper fractions, comparing fractions and mixed numbers, and number opposites. These are all for your practice. And there's 5 more. Negative symbol as an opposite, finding absolute values, comparing absolute values, and absolute value to find distance. This is how you can improve. Do the practice. Improve. Practice. I can. Yes, I will.